Hi, everyone. So we're live. Welcome to the Earn, Learn, Thrive LinkedIn Lives. And I'm talking in this first LinkedIn Live of 2025 to Gabor Kovacs, a language coach, aspiring polyglot. And we're going to be talking about how he helps introverts build confidence and thrive in their language learning. So I'm going to start off then by handing over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself, Gabor.
Thank you, Rachel, for inviting me, and hello to everyone who had the time to watch us today. So my name is Gabor Kovacs. I've been in ELT for about 16 years now. I did a CELTA and also 2/3 of a Delta, which I'm hoping to finish very soon. And my specialization is one-to-one classes. I've been into this field since the start, actually. Now I'm running a coaching program for introverted individuals, and I've decided to do so because I consider myself an introvert as well, and I value conversations greatly, and I base most of my teaching on meaningful and deep conversations with accurate language feedback and personal support to students.
Lovely, thank you. Yes, I mean, I bet there are people out there thinking, oh, so, if you consider yourself to be an introvert, and honestly, I also consider myself to be an introvert, how on earth are you doing alive? But it's not the same thing, is it?
Well, I must say it's a huge challenge for me. And later on, I think we'll go into some techniques which could be useful for an introvert to prepare for some situations like this. But that's why I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be here, because it's also a step forward for me in terms of showing myself as an introvert and finding those ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can remember very clearly the first time that I went live. Actually, I think it was in a Facebook group, and sitting there for about 30 minutes trying to bring myself to press the go live button. Right, seriously.
Yeah, oh God.
But now
I
I'm
can
quite used
relate to that.
No. So as you get used to things, they become more within your comfort zone, I guess.
Absolutely, and I really do think that challenges are vital in anyone's journey, and I think it's even more important with introverts because it doesn't come naturally to us.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. So if you're watching this live, do let us know. Say hi in the comments, because at the moment we have no idea whether we're just talking to each other, which would be fine, actually, because we could have a nice, deep, meaningful conversation here. But if you are here, please do let us know in the comments. And if you have any questions, please add those in the comments as well, and we'll get to the questions as we talk. So so I know that now, you're kind of specifically focusing on how you can help people who identify as being sort of more introverted. So, how did your own experience learning languages or learning in general as an introvert shape what you do in your teaching?
Well, it's been a very long journey, I must say. And I started out as a typical introverted kid, and I found the most joy in things like playing alone or playing with my best friend only. So meeting one-on-one with my best friends. I preferred writing to speaking, needed a lot of time to prepare for things. I was horrified of speaking in public. Even oral exams were the worst kind of horror, I must say. And on the other hand, I really liked extroverts and envied them a bit as well for being able to do those things naturally, which without any visible effort that introverts have to make an extra effort to do.
Yeah.
And there has been this ongoing strain in my life for whether I can accept myself as an introvert, and this stayed with me during school years, university, early adulthood. And what I felt was that those behaviors where I felt most at ease were the least rewarded ones. There was only one exception, traditional education, where we had to cram material and give it back in written exams, which I excelled at. On the other hand, I felt that this was not what what I really had to do in life. I had ambitions to become a teacher from a very early age, in spite of being shy. And the more I matured, the more consciously I could work on addressing these challenges.
No, absolutely. I was
Yeah,
just
and
thinking, oh, sorry, go on.
just one more thing that one thing I especially like from a very early age is learning languages. I used to pick them up naturally on family holidays, and also later I learned, for example, Welsh as a teenager because I loved the Arthurian legends
Oh, wow.
and things like that. So
No, that's amazing. I no, just what you were saying reminded me of. I remember when my daughter was at secondary school, that we would often, like every time she had a report, it would say that she needed to like participate more in class, and what they meant was, that she needed to kind of speak out more in front of the whole class, but it
yeah,
doesn't mean she wasn't participating.
yeah, you're
She was
right.
engaged. She just
Exactly.
wasn't showing it in a way that they thought meant that
Exactly.
she
That's
was
a very
participating.
typical misunderstanding
Mm,
against introverts.
yeah, well, it really
Um,
annoyed me.
yeah, I think it was written into my report book once that why is this kid so passive, and I had to bring that back to my
Mm,
parents. Well,
yeah,
while I felt completely engaged in the class.
exactly. Yeah, it's not passive. Just because you
Mm.
can't, you're not expressing it in that particular way,
Yeah,
does not make it passive. Just
yeah,
to say
exactly.
hi to Imanat and Kata. Thanks for saying hi, and anybody else who's here, let us know. And if you have any questions as we go along, that would be great. So okay, so let's dig in a bit deeper into this. So what do you think are the sort of specific challenges of being a more introverted language learner, and also what do you think of the strengths? I mean, you mentioned like the ability to sort of like memorize and reproduce things. Is there anything else that comes to
Yeah,
mind?
so in my opinion, introverts have a natural tendency to find so engaging in material very deeply easier, and focusing and excluding external stimuli,
Hmm.
and but everything else favors extroverts. And so in most contexts, we can say work environments with team meetings and the company parties, which can be very stressful for introverts, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Most of the work is done in teams where people have to put across their opinions, make themselves heard, which requires extra effort from introverts again. And quite recently, there is the influence of social media, which we
Hmm.
also have to cope with. And it has become more and more inevitable that introverts also use social media. I don't know how many introverts would naturally do that, but nowadays most of us have to find a way to put our personalities across and put our message across in this platform as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, isn't it? From the perspective of like a business owner like yourself or me
Yeah,
who's coaching business owners. Because yeah, I mean, I find that a lot that my clients are very sort of initially at least uncomfortable about the idea of putting themselves out there,
yeah.
of sort of being visible on social media. Do you think that there's a way of kind of handling that works better?
Absolutely. I think it is rooted in the same thing as you teach on your program, that we have to find our niche. In language learning, I would say we have to find our real voice.
Hmm.
So find those words that we can express our thoughts the easiest with, and we shouldn't worry so much about perfection.
Hmm.
And I think it really helps introverts when they can gain time before they have to express their opinions. Enjoy the benefits of solitude, thinking over what they want to say. Writing can help a lot before speaking,
Hmm. Yes,
for
I think
example.
I can see how all of those would relate to the classroom, and also how that can relate to managing social media. Because, for me, I find social media much easier than something like going to the ITEFL conference. You know, I mean, I like going to the ITEFL conference, but I find it exhausting. I always need to have a base that's pretty near to the conference so that I can disappear off for an hour
I
or
see.
two.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have a
My
bit.
option would be to take a short walk outside in a park, or if
Yeah,
there are two
yeah,
trees, it's enough
yeah.
for me. Just something like something close to nature.
Exactly. I find it very overwhelming. Although part of me does like it as well, but I do find it very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Whereas social media, a lot of it, obviously we're doing this live, but a lot of it is something that I can prepare in advance, that I, you know, that I have
That's
time
true.
to think about. And also, I think the other thing which you kind of touched on is, for me, it's about moving that perspective from I'm selling myself, it's all about me, to no, it's not all about me at all. It's
Yes,
all about them and
exactly.
how
I
I can
think you
help them.
said once that our students, our clients deserve to know what we have to offer because it might help them. So we
Exactly.
can't do it to them that we don't communicate what we know.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
that has really
Service.
shifted the game for me when you said that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get that, because it's a service, and that's the same thing with teaching. Because I was
Yeah, and
in, you know,
sorry to interrupt you, but I
no,
think
no,
that applies to introverts really well. That if you are an introvert and you have something to say, the world really deserves to know what you have to contribute to any team meeting or conversation or whatever decision that has to be made.
yeah, totally.
Even if you're not, if you can't find the right words on the spot to put it across in the most entertaining or most to the point way.
Yeah,
Just say it, just try. I think if you're an introvert language learner, that's the most important thing.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, because everybody deserves to be able to communicate, and
Yes,
it is,
exactly.
you know, yeah. No,
Exactly. And when there's a situation where an introvert finds it really hard to get heard, then there are language techniques. There are communication panels that they can use.
So say a bit more about that.
Well, I was just thinking about chunks of language that can I come in here, or sorry to interrupt you, or just saying, well, generally speaking, my opinion is to use time gainers like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
And those few seconds can be life-saving for an introvert.
When I first lived in Portugal many years ago, and you know, didn't speak Portuguese yet, or not very well.
Yeah.
One thing that I learnt was to use the word pois, which just kind of means like yes, no, I'm listening, carry on.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
it's a
Yes.
really
Yes.
useful little word, you know. So I could do that, and then
Absolutely.
people would just keep talking, and eventually I could cotton on to what was
Absolutely.
going on.
Yeah. And this is why I teach back channeling very early on when we talk about speaking techniques, speaking skills with my students.
Yeah, I mean, Kata is saying the discourse is so much different for introverts. And I think that's absolutely right. I'm also seeing Teresa saying here, yeah, that I'm an introvert and I have had to learn how to become an extrovert as a teacher and in the workplace in general. That's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There's a huge temptation for us introverts to masquerade as extroverts because everything forces us to. And I think that's a constant, we're constantly balancing between doing this and finding our own values.
Yeah,
So,
I can relate to that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I think I probably do masquerade as an extrovert quite a lot.
Yeah, because so everything in the world pressures us to do this. And why I think this is so pressing is that there's a faster pace of life nowadays. Attention spans have become much shorter in the past decades, let's say. And for an introvert, it's especially hard to grab somebody's attention fast because we are still thinking if it's the right word, what we are trying to find.
Yeah, which is where writing is helpful, actually. I mean, because
Absolutely.
I do like communicating in written form. You know, I like writing emails to my mailing list, for example.
Sure. Yes, that helps me a lot too.
Mm.
And I think there's one more really important thing about so on the personality level that we have to make a difference between shyness and introversion. And so we have to clarify it for ourselves first, but most importantly, make sure that the outside world understands that as well, because this is a misunderstanding that so that this is how extroverts most typically misunderstand us.
Yeah.
As being shy or being so silent. I remember being asked in my secondary school's class very often, why am I so silent? And extroverts were kind of frustrated by this kind of silence, and they and because of this frustration, I guess they were trying to interpret this as, do I hate them? Am I so slow? Am I so stupid? Or am I afraid of something? They're trying to interpret this in any way. And I couldn't explain this myself as well. So I think it's really important to reflect on this. And to sum it up, so shyness is a fear of social interaction, is a fear of social feedback. And as it is a fear, I think it can be overcome by the right kind of support and setting the right level of challenges. On the other hand, introversion is a personality trait. It's coded in us by our genes. We can't do anything with that, but we can try to enjoy the benefits.
I love that. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. And what appears as weakness may also be care if we communicate it in the right way. What appears as indecision might be insight or deep thought or analytical thinking, and so on and so forth. So all of our negative traits can be transformed into positive ones if we can communicate them well. But it's a long journey, and I think we all need the kind of support. So that's why I'm really, really grateful to those teachers and mentors who I've worked with and who've seen this potential in me and helped me to put this across to other people as well.
Oh, I really love that distinction that you're making there, and I think that's spot on, because it's not about, it reminds me a lot of like the discussions around like neurodiversity as well. It's not about kind of,
Absolutely.
you should be a different kind of person, or there's something wrong with you being this kind of person.
Yes, it's exactly the same kind of conversation.
But there are also, as you say, like fears that you can learn to overcome. I mean, I still absolutely hate walking into like a crowded room full of people and kind of thinking, oh God, I've got to go talk to somebody, and who do I know? And, and I don't think I'll ever stop having that initial reaction, but I've got strategies now that I know how to deal with it.
Yeah, so the older we get, the more experienced we become and the more strategies we develop to handle this.
I've just seen Teresa asking about the link of the discussion. So you should, it will pop up on LinkedIn on my profile, but you should actually get the link through LinkedIn because you've attended here to watch it. But if you can't find it, come and have a look at my profile, and I think maybe Gabor's profile as well. The replay will be available there, Teresa. Yeah, so very interesting. So that's a bit of a light bulb moment for me. You're quite right about that. So can you kind of walk us through any key principles or strategies that you use with your learners?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So because of this shyness or being afraid, I think it's the most important element of my teaching is patience towards the student. So I always let everybody speak at their own pace, and I'm not hurrying anyone. And it's very tempting for us introverts to stay in our zone of comfort, but I think the best kind of learning happens if we are pushed just one step outside of our comfort zone into a zone of learning. If it's too much, we may end up in a zone of frustration, so we must avoid that. So I'm trying to set the right level of challenge for my students to always to put this shyness, this fear behind themselves as step by step in their own pace.
Yeah, I like the way you describe that. Sorry, I've just talking, but because I sometimes talk about with the comfort zone thing, you hear so much narrative about, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I prefer to talk about like stretching your comfort zone, because
that's a great way to put it.
It's more like that. It's like gradually making it a bit bigger and a bit bigger and a bit bigger, because if you jump out of it, you're going to jump right back in again.
That's very true.
Yeah, sorry, go
Yes.
on.
Yeah, so I used to love textbooks when I was a beginner because I thought they provide a very stable framework. But as I gained experience, I decided to base more and more of the lesson around real conversation. And I think the key factors are personalized conversations and the personalization of communication, that students can bring in their favorite topics and learn to speak on their favorite topics. And as this led me as a teacher to work with emergent language as much as we can. So the language that arises on the spot, the exact sentences the student is using. And I'm not teaching them the next element of or grammar rule because it's in the course book, but because I see the gap opening in the knowledge. For example, they're trying to putting a conditional form together without knowing how to. And as a conversation partner, I can sense the meaning first, the intention first, and then I can teach them the rule to how to do that properly. And this happens with vocabulary as well. And there's maybe one more thing that's so giving students food for thought, inspiring deep conversations. I used to love them as a student as well, or this is what I cherish in my friendships as well. Hour-long conversations without feeling bored for a moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I love what you said about emergent language, because, I think this goes for every kind of learner, but maybe especially for those who are more thoughtful and, who are kind of really focused on the meaning of what they're putting across. But we learn things when we really feel like the need for it and that it means something to us.
I agree.
And that, I think that's why that works so well, because it's not just, oh, I've got to learn the third conditional. It's, I want to get across this meaning.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
This is how I do it.
Yes, and this is why the system of levels has become very relaxed in my teaching, because there might be one more important thing, that's learner autonomy. So I was trying to kind of push a student to a higher level because of my own intention, but I had to realize that it didn't really matter what I wanted as a teacher. So I had to start out from what the student wanted. And I very often felt that the limiting factor is very often a learner autonomy, the lack of autonomy, which is, so autonomy is not a skill that's very often developed in traditional education. And I think in one-on-one coaching, it can be addressed really well.
Yeah, because then you're giving them, it's that cliche, isn't it, about, give a man a fish or teach him how to fish, but you're giving them the tools to continue.
Absolutely.
Which, no, I think that's very important. I'm just looking at the comments actually, and Kat is saying, moving to a new country, ? It's probably in response to something we said about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But if that is,
I think it was stretching our comfort zone or even jumping out of it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I know, Kata, that you've taken this step, and I've also tried to at some point in my life, and maybe I will in the future. I don't know. But it definitely is a huge step, and I would recommend it to most students who have reached a good, solid intermediate level to, well, if they have the opportunity, then move or spend like a considerable amount of time in another country, or at least go on an extended holiday and try to communicate as much as possible.
Yes, that's I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, actually, in the coffee chat in my collective group. Because we were talking about sort of, if you had 3 months kind of paid time, what would you do? And I was saying I'd love to go and, well, on one hand, I'd love to go and live in a country of a language that I speak, that I could improve, like in a sort of immersion situation. But equally, the thought of having to spend 3 months like living with somebody that I don't really and having to talk to them all the time is like, so I'm kind of torn between that, because I know how great it would be, but I also feel like,
yes, it's a huge challenge. But I think I prefer, so personally I prefer these live-in opportunities like a work away or couch surfing, which puts us in very direct contact with the native speakers of the language.
Mm.
Yeah, Kata asked, can it be culture specific how bad it is to be an introvert? Absolutely. And that maybe that is why I'm such a big fan of the Japanese culture, because Japan is an introvert's paradise, actually, because it's deeply ingrained in the culture to have a respect for nature, for contemplation, to really value personal relationships, family, friends. There's also a very strong work ethic. That's the negative side. But well, not strong, but very strict work ethic, which can
Yeah.
be damaging for the individual, and also putting the group's interest in front of the individual's interest can also be quite harmful, which the Japanese themselves are suffering from sometimes. But generally, I would still feel I would love to try living in Japan for a while, because I can totally identify with this mindset, this set of values in the culture.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking that because I lived in Brazil for a couple of years, and I think, if we're going to generalize about cultures, that's a much more extrovert kind of culture.
Exactly. Just like Italy, I guess, in Kata's
Yeah,
opinion.
probably like Italy. But I actually think that when I speak Portuguese, I am more extroverted. So I don't know
Yes,
what you
that's
think about
very
that.
true. Yes. In fact, I attended the Polyglot Gathering 2 years ago, and there was a mind-blowing lecture about using an alter ego when learning languages. And we can do that consciously as well. But that the research that they talked about there also underlined the same topic, that we can draw on different personality traits when speaking in another language. So I might hazard a guess that I sound more extroverted when speaking in English. And when I visited some of my students in person, they also pointed that out, that I was much more reserved when talking to them in Hungarian in an informal setting.
How interesting, isn't it? Because, somebody mentioned like sort of masking and, and I guess that could be part of it. But I feel like I am actually a slightly different person. I mean, when I was younger, it used to sometimes get me into trouble because I think I would be like more flirty in Portuguese.
I see. Yeah.
Because Brazilians are just very warm and open, and
Yeah,
they
it might
trust
go
you
as
a lot,
far as that.
So it's I think it's fascinating, that
It
side
is. It
of
truly
things.
is.
Okay, so we're coming up towards the end of the chat. So Nina's saying absolutely, we take on different personalities with different languages. Yeah, and that certainly has been my experience, I think. So are there any kind of, maybe we've already talked about this enough, but what sort of common misconceptions that you wish that more teachers understood about working with introverts?
Yes, I think we've already touched upon that a little bit. So most importantly, when a teacher sees an introverted student as being silent, they should carefully think about the reason, or if they can't come up with a reason, just accept that and try to create a friendly, welcoming, supportive atmosphere for the introvert to open up themselves. I think what would help the most is making an introverted student feel that it's interesting what they have to offer, that it's worth listening to, and then they will open up by themselves. Prying an introverted student open, I think, is not possible.
Yeah, well, and definitely not advisable, I would say.
Yeah. But at the same time, it might be true that introverted students are afraid. So their introversion doesn't mean being afraid in itself, but there are many good reasons for an introverted person to be afraid, because the playing field generally favors extroverts. And if a coach wants to do a really good job in supporting introverts, I think they have to even it out, at least within the classroom.
Yeah, no, because it's previous learning experiences. And yes, if they've received a lot of
Exactly.
messages, that they don't participate or that they're not good at this or that or the other,
Yeah.
then you've got some work to do there to redress the balance, if you like.
Absolutely.
No, lovely. Well, thank you very much. Really interesting conversation. And thank you, everybody who's been watching us live as well, and making comments and joining in the conversation. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I would like to thank you all as well.
And yeah, you know, if you are, or you know of anybody who considers themselves more introverted, who wants help with learning English, I think you can see that Gabor is a great person to go to for that. And we will check in on the comments afterwards for those of you who are watching this later on replay, in case there's any sort of questions or anything there. But yes, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming, Gabor.
Thank you for inviting me.